Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the Chakra Way Meditation Podcast. And today, I am really excited to introduce you to a new guest. I have Karen Cheong joining me, and Karen is, I think, going to be fascinating, and I think we're going to be aligned on a lot of the beliefs that we have. And she is a transformational, she is a catalyst. And I love that word. Like so many people call themselves a coach, and Karen calls herself a catalyst. Like I love that. A catalyst for awakening, for transformation. And I'm just going to read a little bit from your bio because I love this and I can't put this any better than you said. But you are helping self-aware change seekers and boundary breakers transcend plateaus by releasing unconscious blocks at the quantum level. So I wanted to say, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for coming, Karen, onto the podcast. And say to everybody that the work that you do is really I love the title that you've given yourself, or the title that your business has, which is Spherical Luminosity. So I would
Mhm.
love you to expand on where this spherical luminosity, and I have a fairly good idea where this comes from, but tell me, where did that come from?
Sure, I'd love to share that with you. And first, I just want to thank you for having me on. I have done over 240 podcasts of my own, and I know how much this is a labor of love, and it really is truly an act of service, and you're creating tremendous impact. So thank you so much. I'm very honored to be part of what it is that you're creating. And just a small ask for everybody who's listening, if you could do us a huge favor and go leave a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform that you're tuning in on, so that Rosanne can impact even more people. Because there's a lot of darkness and there's a lot of fear mongering in the world right now, and I think it's really an opportunity for us to share people who are spreading good and who are spreading uplifting and inspirational information that can truly help other people. So I rated mine over on Spotify the other day. So if you could come and join me, I think we would both appreciate it. So with that said, I wanted to just address your question, which is a great question. So spherical luminosity is really what we all are. I didn't, when a lot of people start their businesses, they start by wanting to brand them. But I'm not really that interested in that. I'm wanting, what I'm here for is to help catalyze awakening. And so what we truly are these spheres of luminosity or brilliance or light. And everyone has this idea of what awakening is, but it really just simply is about entering a certain resonance and then remembering who you truly are, which is source intelligence or consciousness in form. And I feel that, so many people are struggling with, you know, um, that process. I mean, the awakening to the power and the magnificence of who you truly are as co-creator of your reality, or said differently, awakening can be really frustrating and not to mention confusing. It sure was for me. And, many people spin their wheels focusing on the symptoms instead of the hidden root of their problems. So they keep experiencing the same struggles over and over again. And really, what I do is I catalyze your shift from the ordinary to the magic of the quantum, simply by giving you the tools to change your frequency resonance, because it's really up to you, so that the life you lead matches the life you dream of. And I think that's such an important message right now, because so many people feel like they're disempowered at this moment with everything that's happening in the world. And I think it's an important thing to realize that you are the one who is in charge of, and it sometimes doesn't feel like this, but it truly is, like, in terms of what you experience, what you get to know, what it is that you are inspired by, what intuition you get to have. And, I've helped thousands of people in 48 countries access higher resonating versions of themselves. So not only do they feel their unlimited potential, because it truly is unlimited, their reality reorganizes around them. And, what's really inspirational for me and what really lights me up is the most really is how quickly people are waking up to their true brilliance and transforming and up-leveling their lives and the lives of those around them. So yeah, so spherical luminosity is really about who we truly are. And, there are all these different paths to remembering that. I'm one of them, but that's really who we are. And this awakening process, to me, is about returning to that knowingness of our true essence.
I love this. And I love that you've arrived in my timeline when you have, because this is a theme that I've been really delving into recently, that of remembrance.
Hmm.
I just told you before that I just got back from Morocco, where I was leading a retreat
Hmm.
and actually, and the theme that I led throughout was this remembrance of the self, the coming back to the
Yeah.
self, to the home of the self, because there are so many distractions and so much
Yeah.
noise in the world that we forget who we are sometimes, and we forget
Absolutely.
our innate power that we
Hmm.
have. And it sometimes takes 5 days in Morocco or working with a coach and just changing up and gathering to you the tools that you need to begin to remember, because it's a strange dichotomy, because this is a conscious effort towards altering and connecting with your subconscious. And I know that you talk a lot about releasing unconscious blocks, these
Hmm.
things. This is again what I talk about a lot as well. We've got to
Hmm.
unearth, when we talk about this work, and it's often, in my mind, it's mind, body, and spirit. And the mind part of it is just the kind of working out where the blocks arrived. So you can go, okay, I see. Uncle so and so gave me that block. That teacher gave me that block. Right. How do I now unravel all of that? So
Hmm.
your speciality is this beautiful work of releasing unconscious blocks.
Hmm.
Let's go back to a little bit about your origin story, because your how you came to this work is something that I'm really interested in, actually, because you did something
Hmm.
quite out there, quite
Yeah.
extreme. A lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just want to preface this, but yeah, I want to preface this by saying, like, I did not expect it. I certainly did not imagine even 10 years ago, or maybe even 9 years ago, that I would be sitting here doing this. But essentially, my journey started with a health crisis. Like many people who begin their spiritual journey, it starts with some form of crisis, right? So I had a health crisis. I happened to meet a very special acupuncturist. I had seen other acupuncturists, but I was really, really sick and really emotionally distraught, like very in a dark place. And he was the first person I met who could see energy. And
Mm.
without even touching me, without even knowing any of my story, he knew exactly what was wrong. And after like 5 weeks with him and recovering to to a very high state of vitality and just a huge shift emotionally, that was the catalyst for me wanting to explore what it was in the unseen, in the non-ordinary reality that affected what I thought was physical and real and unchangeable. So
Mm.
that was the beginning of my seeking. And I tried all these different woo-woo things. What people would call that, different energetic modalities. I am a curious person by nature, and so I was also not only exploring that stuff, but I was exploring the world of personal development and coaching, and um, you know, personal coaching, business coaching, and I was implementing all these things that I was learning in my business. And at the time, I was a real estate agent in San Francisco with my husband and partner Chris, and we had a really successful business. And it was it was lovely in a way, because we had our own small little team. We built it in integrity. We only worked by referral. We only worked with people who were nice. We refused to work with douchebags. And so we had a really lovely business, and we were very abundant because we were one of the very top real estate agents in San Francisco, which is a competitive market and a beautiful place to live. And from the outside, it looked amazing. And but I knew something was wrong, because it didn't matter how much abundance we had, and it didn't matter how much I had in my bank account. I always felt like I didn't have enough. So I would sit at home at night, very late after I finished work, and I would spreadsheet every night how much cushion we would have until we had to sell our house and move in with my parents. So I'm not sure why that was the variable that my mind latched onto, but that's what it did. And so I was just like distraught, because when you're helping people to buy and sell their homes, we never pushed people. So I never knew when anybody was going to make a choice. So anyway,
Mm.
I just knew something was wrong. And I started to ask this question to the universe. And my question is, what am I missing? Because I'm doing all these energetic modalities. And please know that like our life looked spectacular, right? We were doing very well from the outside. Everything was amazing. And yet I still had this pattern running. And I knew I had done quite a lot of internal work. So I knew this was not in alignment with everything else. So anyway, I kept asking the universe, what am I missing? What am I missing here? Why am I not feeling the abundance? Like I have it, but I'm not feeling it. And why is it that we're working so hard and there are, a few people who work less and are making more? Like, what's up with that? I have all these super tools. Like, why are they not working? So it's funny when you ask a question to the universe often enough, you often will get a response. At least that's my experience. And one day I was sitting on my acupuncturist table, having come back from this journey to France, and a different acupuncturist, because now this is, 20 some odd years later. And as I'm sitting there on her table and I'm getting up, she asks me if I've ever heard of something called frequency work. And I said, no, I hadn't. But in that moment, it was one of the first times that I ever felt time get really, really long. So it expanded. It was kind of like if you've ever watched that old movie, The Matrix, the one with Keanu Reeves, and there's that moment where he he sees he's being shot at by whomever, and the bullets are going in. So yeah, he's going backwards, and the like this, and the bullets are flying by him, and he like picks them out of the air, right? So that was my very sort of middle-aged woman version in San Francisco version of that. So in the sense that for me, when I got up off the table and she said those words, it was like I could see every angle of the room as I turned. Like everything just really slowed down. And at that moment, I knew, without knowing why, that this was something I had to follow. And I didn't have any outcome. Like, it wasn't like, I was like, I would like to be a healer. I would like to be a coach. Like, I didn't have any of that. I was just like, I would just like to freaking stop spreadsheeting. Thank you. That would be fantastic. So anyhow, I started to release what I call distortion patterns. And we can talk about that a little later. And as I released them, my resonance started to rise, because that's what happens when you shake off things that are heavy in resonance. What will happen is your vibration will start to rise. And so things start to change, because your reality mirrors the resonance or the vibrational level that is you. So as I started to do that, what happened was my vibration started, as I said, started to rise. And it was funny because I didn't really notice it exactly. One day, a few weeks later, my husband, Chris, said to me, like, have you noticed that you're not spreadsheeting? And I was like, oh my God, no, I had not at all. So anyway, fast forward 2 years, just because I'm an intense kind of person, I was like, well, if this can happen, what else can happen? Like, what happens if I keep doing this, right? What's the possibility? Because I'm almost curious about like what's possible. So fast forward 2 years of intensive distortion pattern release, self-work on myself. And I found myself at a different retreat in a tiny little, but not at the retreat. I decided not to go at the last minute, which was pivotal for me. And I was sitting in this studio apartment, and without asking for it, I entered a meditation that lasted, and this is in Sedona, Arizona, which is beautiful. And I was sitting there, and I entered what I didn't know would be a 9-hour meditation. I didn't have the intention for that. I didn't have a plan for it. It just happened. And as I rose in resonance, I actually managed to rise through, different layers like love, light, consciousness, and then pierced what I call the veil of forgetting, which is the veil that you drop through as a human, which causes you to forget. You agree to it, by the way. It causes you to forget that you are intrinsically part of the one, which sounds like sort of like this nice woo-woo concept, but it's a huge forgetting. You've just gone from remembering that you're a part of everythingness and that you are completely held and that you're completely beloved into the illusion that you're completely separate, alone, and limited. That's a pretty huge drop. So I pierced that veil, and in that moment, I felt everythingness, and that was what I call an ego death. So I lost let's call it identity of Karen in that moment. And it was funny, I started laughing because I couldn't believe that I'd forgotten that I was part of the one. Like, it was so ridiculous in that moment that I'd forgotten. It's like forgetting you have a hand. And then I started crying because I couldn't believe that I'd forgotten that I was part of the one. And then everything in that meditation was frequencies. It was just resonance. And it was all sort of like waves of potential, because nothing's really solid. It's just like these waves, and they kind of feel or sound like, they're not form. And I knew at that moment that I could change that. I don't know how I knew. I just knew. I wasn't thinking. And then when I came back from that meditation, the next day, I happened to be contacted, as happens with the universe sometimes, a friend who I hadn't seen in years, and we happened to be overlapping in Sedona for literally like 12 hours or something like this. So she came to see me, and as she's talking and sitting in front of me, she was telling me about some problem or another that I don't remember, and I had this feeling of like, I know I can help her. But who am I? I mean, I'm like a real estate agent, for God's sake, right? Like, I'm going to offer this woman something. And so, but the pressure within my solar plexus to say, would you like help with that, got so strong, it kind of just blurted out of me. And I was like, do you need help with that? Would you like some help with that? And she looked at me kind of funny, and she said, sure. And so I didn't know what I was doing at the time, actually. And I just did what I would develop later. And that was that. We had an end of our chat, and off she went, And I didn't hear from her. And then 3 days later, my phone started to blow up with messages from all of her friends who wanted sessions. And I was like, I don't even know that I give sessions. I don't even know what I do. And so anyway, that's how Spherical Luminosity began. And it just has basically steamrolled without me. It's not like I didn't intend it, but it wasn't like it began with me with an outcome, if that makes sense. So here I am talking to you, and having been somebody who graduated from the #2 law school in Canada, interned from a federal court judge, worked at .com, and had real estate business, to find myself here talking about this is kind of like, and the path that life takes is unexpected, often.
Maybe that story, I had shivers traveling up and down my spine because I'm feeling the vibes. So I'm really
Oh,
from you. And it's what an incredible, and I find it really fascinating because like you had this very sort of spiritual, meditative, like piercing of the veil, this realizing of oneness. Now
mhm,
I have what I would say a conscious
mm,
understanding of oneness. I
mhm,
believe that. I believe that we are spirits having a human experience. I believe that all our energies are connected. But I kind of believe it in my mind, and I know
yeah.
it in my body, but I've not experienced it. Do you know what I mean? Like, in
Mhm,
the same way that
mhm.
you've had kind of quite profound experience, and I've talked to so many people for this podcast who have had that visceral, physical moment in time experience. For me,
Yeah.
it's like sedimentary sand. It's just layer upon layers, just building as I begin to into all of this stuff feels so logical, so sensible, so clearly obvious that I know it to be true. Anyway,
Mhm.
that by the by, thank you for the shivers. I needed that. It was lovely.
You're welcome.
Tell me about the distortion patterns and this unblocking that you do, because um, this is the work that all healers are attempting to do. This is what people who are trying to help people to find this understanding, this awareness, this realization of the
Mhm.
quantum field of energy being everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to come at this, and I feel like yours is
Yeah.
going to be a special one. Distortion patterns. Talk to me about how,
Yeah. Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I could totally do that. So, well, if you're watching this podcast, you probably know this, but everything is vibrating. It's not like it's a new concept. It's been talked about for decades now by the scientists, and everything is vibrating. And as a result, it's the rate of vibration that dictates the form of the thing, right? So if you take something very physical like water, right, and you have the molecular vibration of water vibrating very high, it's steam, and as that molecular vibration slows down, it becomes liquid water, and as that slows down even more, it becomes solid or ice. So if you take that idea and you extrapolate it all the way out to consciousness or the field or oneness or source or whatever you want to call that consciousness, which is so highly vibrating that we cannot yet measure it with our physical human tools, that vibrates, and like I said, an extraordinary rate. So in order for the oneness to even be aware of itself as something other than just infinite one, 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 right? Because that's lovely, it needs to have a drop in vibration in order to experience something else, in order to experience like the infinite variety of life. So it drops in resonance, and then as soon as it drops, frequencies are formed. And when that slows down, that creates something that we talk about now as energy. And when that vibrational rate slows down even more, it creates form or solidity or matter, like, your chair or your body, or even to some degree your emotions and your thoughts, because your emotions and your thoughts are really, to me, an embodiment of your distortion patterns. So to answer your question about distortion, okay, so everything happens at the level of the quantum first. Okay, so everyone thinks that you have to do all these physical things and then spirit changes. But quantum is really the field. Okay, so everyone uses the word quantum. It's thrown around a lot these days, and everyone's like, I don't know how people use it, but it's confusing. So a quantum resonance is simply what people have called the field. Now, Lynn McTaggart has written about the field. Deepak Chopra was writing about the field like in the 80s, right? And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it. So all these people have been talking about the field, the oneness, this infinite field of possibility, which connects all of us, to which we are all connected, and to which we all come from, and to which we return, the field. So in any case, when you come into embodiment, all right, and you have first of all, you're a sphere of pure source energy vibrating at a very unique rate. And there's nothing wrong with the sphere, okay? So just please note, there's nothing damaged about your sphere. Everyone asks me, is there something wrong with my soul? I'm like, no, nothing's wrong with your soul. You've just got to crap around it. So anyway, when you come into incarnation, you drop in your resonance, and what look like layers and 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 layers of duct tape form around the sphere. Now, what are those layers of duct tape? So those layers of duct tape, that's a metaphor, by the way, are a distortion pattern, what I call distortion patterns, which happen at the level of the quantum, at the frequency resonance, which are coming from things like your ancestors or your lineage. I call it your lineage, okay? So, the field of epigenetics has been exploring this, right? So what your ancestors experienced absolutely 100% impacts you, whether or not you know their names, or even if they're like 100 generations removed from you. You are living out the field within which they existed and that you act out, okay? And so it's interesting to note that they're finding that even our choices and how your genes express is very much a result of your epigenetic field. And then, of course, there's your social conditioning and your cultural patterning and your religious distortion patterns. So even if you were brought up, like I was, in an agnostic family, right? There was no religious anything, really. I can guarantee you that your grandparents and your great-parents were absolutely influenced by religion, and it therefore influences your field. So there's that, and then, of course, your past lives. Now, that's a short list of the biggest factors in the duct tape. But these are the patterns that you can't seem to get rid of, right? So here you are in your life, trying to do different things, like being mindful, doing different practices, and yet nothing's working. So as an example, I had this client who was really struggling with intimate relationship. So she's a very smart, lovely, warm, successful business owner. And she has tons of friends, okay, both male and female. So she's lovely. And every time she would be in relationship, it would be a variation of the same kind of douchebag, meaning some guy who was emotionally absent or took her for granted or was emotionally abusive. And all her friends would be like, really? You know what I mean? And she would always do everything for them, right? And so she entered a relationship with man, whomever, whatever guy, and she would feel like she was the one who had to compensate, right? So she would be running around doing things like planning all their vacations, writing birthday cards to his mom, walking his dog, making them dinner. Like she was just doing all this stuff because she thought she wasn't really worthy of his attention, his love, his focus, and so she had to compensate for all that. Yeah. All right. So I think we all have a girlfriend who has experienced that, or we are ourselves one of those people. But anyhow, finally, after she'd broken up with the latest guy, she was like, okay, I just need to take a break from men. Like, I'm going to be kind of, a nun here and not see anybody because I just need to clear whatever is within me that's causing this. And I just want to feel whole. And I just want to feel like I like myself again. I just want to feel that way. So she found me through a friend of a friend, which is often how it works. And as we started to work on releasing her distortion patterns of low self-worth and not being able to receive and, stuff with her mom. And she was doing, I work one-on-one with people, but mostly a lot of people work with me in like what I call group frequency calibrations, which is when you listen to what seems like a meditation, but there's frequency work happening in the background. And so anyway, she's having all this progress. She's feeling better about herself. She finds, like you said at the beginning, she finds herself again. She finds her joyfulness. She finds she finds again what lights her up without needing someone else. You know what I mean? Like she finds her joy. And I think for a lot of women after they break up, it can be hard because we can lose identity. So anyway, she finds herself again. She finds more ease within herself, even with all of her bumps and her imperfections and whatever. But she also starts to embrace what's wonderful about herself. Because I don't know if you've noticed this. Like we can be like, oh, no, well, thank you so much for saying those wonderful things about me. But that's really me. We don't really claim that. So she starts to be okay with all of it, and her humanness, which is really lovely. And she decides, okay, I'm going to start dating again just to see. After 8 months, she's like, I'm just curious to see what my response is going to be. I don't necessarily need to find my guy. I just want to just see what happened after I've released all these distortion patterns. Has it really changed anything? I mean, like I feel different, but what's it gonna be like if there's chemistry involved here? So anyway, her friends put her on 2 dating platforms. She's like, I don't even know what to do. So they put her on 2 dating platforms, and within 24 hours, she has 2 dates, okay? 2 coffee dates. She goes out with guy number 1. So guy number 1, she's sitting across from him, and it's funny because she wrote in to customer service saying, okay, so I'm sitting across from this guy, and this is exactly the type of guy I would have fallen for in the past, okay? I can see it all over him, and I can feel myself being a little bit attracted to him, and then she catches herself, and she's like, wait, no, I don't have to fix this guy. I don't have to save him. It's not my job, And so she noticed the patterns in herself. She confirmed the removal of them. She saw the guy and she's like, no, thank you. You're lovely, but I don't need to fix your mess. And I wish you well. Okay. So she was able to do this. So she was so proud of herself. She's like, oh, I didn't fall into that same kind of thing. Guy number 2, she has coffee with guy number 2. And so she says, okay, first of all, I would never be attracted to this kind of guy, ever. He's like put together. He's really lovely. He doesn't need to be fixed. He doesn't need to be saved. He is a really fascinating person. And she's like, I don't even know if I'm physically attracted to him. However, we spent 2 hours at coffee. Like, when does that happen? 2 hours at coffee, right? So then fast forward now he is into her. And so now for the first time, instead of her chasing him, he chases her. So within a week, they're at coffee. Dinner, excuse me. Within 2 weeks, they're on a camping trip. Within a month, they're traveling to Europe together. And in a year, they're engaged. Now, I just want to say, everyone thinks like the focus in our culture is on the ring. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm getting married. But that's not the win. The win is how she feels. The win is in how, when she wakes up in the morning, she actually wrote me, and it actually makes me very emotional. She's like, I pinch myself when I wake up because when he says, I love you and I want to make you happy, I can receive that. And it makes me like, he wants to make me happy. And it does. She could actually receive that she was worthy of that. And, she's like, I look at my life and I'm with this man and in this house and in this life, and I can't believe that it's mine because it literally, like 2 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible for me. So that's the win. It's about how she feels about her, the brilliance of her life, how, the opportunity she has, and the knowingness that she did the work to get there. Like, it's hers. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, of course, Karen helped and did the frequency work, but this woman had to do her own work. You know what I mean? Because, like, in the New Age community, there's a lot about, like, the healers get to save me. Okay, look. I'm not saying healers and who's and bops can't help you. Of course they can. You always have guides. I have had guides. I have had teachers. I have had healers. Of course, we all have them. But ultimately, the path to your own brilliance, to having your life be a reflection of that brilliance, for remembering who you truly are, not as a concept, but as a feeling, as a visceral knowing, is up to you. It's yours. It's your power. No one can give it to you. And that's like a kind of scary thing for some people because they kind of want to be like, magically waved over and saved. But it's extraordinarily empowering, at the same time.
A lot of people go, I want to be healed. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, good luck with that. Like, waft whatever over you and do body work and what have you. And yeah, I'm not saying that people like acupuncturists, as you've said, already, this can be super helpful, but all they're
Of
doing is
course.
facilitating the work that you are doing. You can heal yourself.
Exactly.
Yes, we all need somebody to hold our hand
Absolutely.
and give us the tools, help us, show us to how to use the tools. It's like if you decided you wanted to be a woodworker, like you can't do it without the tools, and then you need to learn how to use the tools before you can actually
Exactly.
get out of the wood. So
Yeah.
it's what we need is somebody to just show us the way. And
Hmm.
I'm fascinated by this frequency work that you do. So in breaking down the distortion patterns, yes, I get
Hmm.
that. This is peeling off the gunk, letting go of those layers,
Yeah.
releasing, freeing ourselves from the duct tape. I love that analogy. That's quite a
Thank you.
yes, it's a good image. So frequency work, you're saying like your meditation's like I'm all about a sound healing and all of that. I just love that work of
Hmm.
sound and song, and I'm very clairaudient. Like I get songs
Hmm.
through me all the time in my brain.
Yeah.
Crazy. Sometimes they keep me awake at night. It's just like
Wow.
please let go of the song. Anyway, so frequency work. How does that work in your world? What does that look like?
Yeah, so, we've gotten to the point in consciousness where you don't have to be physically proximate to anyone. And we're got the point where consciousness has risen that someone like me can work beyond time space. I know it's a bit of a leap, but that's what happens. And so when you listen to a group frequency calibration, which will sound like a guided meditation to you, so it'll sound like put your attention here, you'll start to relax. Some people fall asleep, which is great. You don't have to stay awake. Because what's happening is, whether you're aware of it or not, is you are entraining to a higher resonance. So you're moving up, and like entrainment is something that, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about a lot, and Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about a lot, and anybody who does chiropractic will talk about it. But it's about your natural propensity as a human to move up in your resonance. You will mirror and move and follow something that's of a higher resonating order. And therefore, as a result, as you can sustain it, that's when your physical reality reorganizes. But frequency work is, like I said, given in two ways. I give very few one-on-one sessions nowadays. It's mostly these group frequency calibrations and these workshops that I give online and retreats that I give. We just gave a 40-person retreat in Egypt, and then the year before we were 50 people in Scotland. So, you can have that kind of live experience, but really the work has to do with just, you can be online and do it. It doesn't matter physically where you are. And so I will, depending on what's going on, if it's a workshop, I'll explain what it is that the theme is, explain why something's important, and then the work. Your mind understanding is really, I do that so that you can relax, basically, and have a greater context for what it is that's happening. But the frequency work happens in what seems, like I said, a guided meditation. And, when you listen to it, you're like, huh? You know what I mean? It feels, depending on who you are, like when I first experienced it, I didn't really actually feel anything, but I knew at the end of it something had drastically changed because it's beyond the physical. And even if you're somebody who feels, or somebody who hears, or somebody who sees, it's beyond your senses because it's at the level of the quantum. So it's a new sense, I guess, that we're developing. And so what happens is, in these group frequency calibrations, it depends on who you are. You might feel nothing. You might actually see a lot of colors. You might feel a lot of heat or tingliness move through your body. You might see a lot of different kinds of imagery. You might hear things. You might, like my husband's like you, he's clairaudient, meaning he hears and knows things, right? That's how he experiences things. Sometimes what will happen afterwards is you just have this clear knowingness. Some people just go into deep sleep because what happens is their higher selves are kicking them out of conscious awareness so they can allow for more to happen. So frequency work looks different for different people, but in terms of the experience, but when you listen to these things, what's important is afterwards, there's something that I call the confirm the removal process, which has to do with having an awareness. And anybody who's done internal work knows this, right? Like you said at the very beginning, you have to have awareness, because if you don't have awareness, then nothing bloody happens, right? So you're aware of the patterns in your life, right? Like this woman that I talked about with relationships, she's like, oh yeah, I always feel like I'm not really worthy. Like I have to do all this stuff for him. Like she had to come to that realization herself, right? In order to be aware of the pattern. And so and then to release it, right? So once we do the work, whether it's in group or one-on-one, to be aware of the patterns in your life, and then to do something that I call confirm the removal, which is, I have what is it? 20-minute guided meditation to help you do this, where you literally release that pattern out of your field, right? Because you become aware of it, you see the pattern show up either in a person or an experience or a circumstance or whatever happens. And then what you do is you then say to yourself, that is no longer mine because you've already released it at the level of the field. So you're like, with your conscious awareness, you're like, no, that doesn't need to exist for me anymore. And then you make a different choice. Okay. So it doesn't have to be like this radical outward movement. It could be how you respond internally, the question you ask, what you do, like, you know what I mean? How you choose to feel. So all of that can shift internally without an external action, or it could be an external action. Like instead of saying, automatically no to this invitation because I tend to be somebody who likes to be alone a lot. I actually am going to say yes and see what happens because that's just a different choice, for example, right? So it can be an internal movement or external movement, but what you're doing is you're confirming your authority as co-creator in your field. And you're saying that pattern that I've been creating no longer needs to exist for me because, I've, like I said, released it at the level of the quantum for you. It's done. And at the level of the field, it's instant. It doesn't take any time. But ultimately, this is a free will planet, right? You have free will. So like we said just a few minutes ago, I can't just wave my magic wand for you and poof you into like awakeness. You have authority. So that's why this confirm the removal process is so important because you're using your authority as creator, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you feel your life sucks or not, and you're disempowered. You start to use that muscle of like, yes, I actually am creating my reality. I do have the authority to release this. And when you do that, it's amazing how fast your resonance can rise. Because a lot of people think I have to think about doing all these things in order to have my resonance rise. Literally, if you just start to be aware of and clear your distortion patterns, automatically by releasing things that are heavy, it's like a hot air balloon. You release the sandbags, of course your resonance is going to rise. You don't have to really think about it too much. So if you clarify yourself, that's what I mean by clarifying yourself. And a lot of people in different circles will talk about clarifying themselves in different ways, but really ultimately it's this. It's about releasing these heavy things which you don't need to carry around anymore in order for your resonance to rise. That's what clarifying is. And a lot of people will confuse it with purity, like there's something wrong with you, or like you're unclean, or like you're sinful, and there's something bad about you as a human. There's nothing bad about you as a human, right? It's just that you have all of these patterns, those deck tape layers that condition you to believe that your reality is a certain way and that you're a certain way. It's kind of like if you are sitting on a beach, right, and you're looking at this beautiful sunset, right, and here you are, you're looking through all these different filters. So you don't really see the sunset. You see a filter of brown and then a filter of gray and then a filter that makes things warbly and then whatever. So in the end, you think because you're looking through the filters that it's actually not a beautiful sunset, but it's actually a stormy, cloudy evening. Because that's what you see, because you're looking through your filters. And then you keep creating it because that's what you think you see. But as you release the distortion patterns, not only does your viewpoint of your experience of your reality change, your viewpoint of you shifts. So you don't feel separate. You start to feel, without knowing why exactly you're feeling it, that you are part of the oneness and that you are aware that you are source intelligence in form, like you get to be consciousness, having an embodied experience. And it's not an idea. It's a very lived experience, and it's so personal and deeply intimate and very specific to you, because who can tell you how you're going to express yourself as consciousness and form? So that's really the journey, I think. And hopefully that answers the question.
That was incredible. I mean, in terms of releasing unconscious blocks and, as distortion patterns, this is quite something. So this frequency work, I get, but I'm interested. I mean, this is a really, after everything that you said, which was so erudite and intelligent, I'm going to ask a really kind of dumb question.
No,
Um,
please. Yeah, there's nothing dumb. Yeah.
see, and I enjoy dumb questions. When we're listening to your meditation, which
Hmm.
has been, which is a lovely thing to do, and I hear you, and I say, because quite often if I'm doing a guided meditation with somebody, my higher conscious kicks me out. I just like
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, damn, I was really wanting to enjoy and experience and take that in. But my high consciousness goes, no, you're not going to listen to this because you're just going to listen to it and analyze it and think about it too much. So we
Hmm.
need out for the count.
Hmm.
I get that.
Hmm.
Um, but this frequency work, are we talking sound frequency, like solfeggio frequencies, or are we
Hmm.
talking like higher, different, like how does this come in? That's the
Yeah, yeah. So that's a really great question. So sound frequency is within the audible physical range that your ears can perceive, and to some degree beyond that, depending on the implements that you're using, etc. But we're talking about frequency at the level of the quantum. So I it's funny when and so for just for everyone to know, all of this is accessible based on how high your resonance is. So as you release your distortion patterns and as your resonance starts to rise, you become more and more aware, I should say, sorry, of more and more things without really thinking about it. You just have an awareness. And so it just shifts and changes in terms of your perception. So it's actually beyond sound. And so for me, when I pierced that veil of forgetting and I actually perceived frequency, it's not audible. So it's not physical at all. This is at the quantum field. And so to me, when I feel, or I call it, it's feeling and kind of hearing, but it's not really hearing. It's like a felt hearing. I don't know what else to call it. I can feel the field as waves of potential, like because nothing is solid and nothing is form. We think it is, right? So we keep putting our attention on the same thing over and over again, and we keep insisting that this is the way things should be. But the thing is, they started that they did that famous double slit experiment
yeah.
in the 80s, which showed that basically that the observer is causing the thing that is being observed, right? So what they did was I think they were working on subatomic molecular structure, and in order to observe it, what happened was it wasn't there unless the observer was observing. So the particle didn't show up unless the observer was observing. So everything is waves, okay? It's not particle yet. What makes it a particle, which is solid, is your attention and your resonance. So where are you putting your attention? How high or low is your resonance? The higher your resonance, the more you can be in the surrender required to be in that field of potential and to allow it to be something other than just the normal thing that you're always fixated on. And as humans, I don't know if you've noticed this, we tend to be, quite fixated on what we're worried about or what we're stressed about or what we're anxious about and where we're lacking. And we're always wondering, like, how the heck are we going to solve that? And I'm not belittling it. I mean, very clearly, I was in that too. Okay, so I'm not suggesting that it's like an unusual or a bad experience per se, but we habituate to it. I mean, if I was spreadsheeting, just think about it for a second, even in my example, I was spreadsheeting every night my lack. That's what I was doing, right? And so I was reinforcing it, reinforcing it, and reinforcing it. So of course I was in it, right? So what happens when you start to release your distortion patterns and as your resonance rises, you start to be able to drop away from your mind and into the heart space. Now I know everyone's talking about this right now and everyone's like, do that. And if you're in your mind, you're like, I don't understand how the freak to do that. Because I mean, if I could do that, I would have just done that yesterday. You know what I mean? Wouldn't that just be really easy? But the thing is, and I was like that too. One of the amazing consequences of releasing my patterns is that my mind still, and can I just tell you that my mind was super active, very controlling. I had like literally a 5-year plan and a breakdown of what I was going to be doing in those 5 years, like very controlled. So I was having all these thoughts all the time and I was often like worrying internally. But what's amazing is that your mind starts to still and you think when you need to. So I'm not saying like I wander around like oming and like, skipping through the tulips. I mean, which, can sounds kind of nice actually, but I don't do that. I still function as a human. It's just that my mind is not the dominant force. What I follow is my heart. Like, because your heart, yes, it's about love. Because please, no, but it's about love, not human love, but unconditional love. But it's also the gateway to the infinite. So it's about making this movement from your consciousness being here up in your head, thinking about all the things you got to do and how little time you got to do it and the to-do list that never ends and all the stuff, all the things you're worried about, and releasing enough of the patterns so you can actually surrender and make this movement down into the heart space. You can't think your way there. I couldn't. It's really about releasing these patterns. So what happens is your mind literally, and it was such a relief. I cannot explain to you how big of a relief it was when my mind finally got more quiet. I was like, because everyone tells you to still your mind when you meditate. When I first started meditating, I was like, I can't still a damn thing. I'm thinking about all the things I haven't done by sitting my ass here on this cushion for the past 5 minutes. I'm not still at all. I'm just more agitated, actually. So if I can do it, I'm just saying, you can, right? And so it's really about focusing on releasing your patterns. And when that happens, your resonance rises. And honestly, that is the key to everything.
Wow. Okay. I love all of what you've said. I kind of want to know so much more. I feel like you are clearly bursting with all of this wisdom and this energy and this good stuff. But I've taken so much of your time already, and I kind of feel like we need to come back for a part two on this because we
Okay,
haven't
sure.
station, we haven't talked about, yeah, there's lots of things that I would love
There's
to
so much to talk about.
want to go deeper into this work. Is something of a yeah, I mean it's obviously it's our passions. We feel so
Yeah,
deep. But if somebody is like really turned on by what you said and has had the visceral body reaction that I've had as well, just like oh, like full surrender into like this being so true, this being so tangible and believe, just wanting to be in it. How do people get hold of you and how can they reach out to you?
sure. So, first of all, I just, want to say, as I said at the beginning, thank you. And for even asking that question. And, as I mentioned at the beginning, I have over 250 podcast episodes of my own. So I know how much this is an act of service and that um, I, and you give so much value. So I really am inspired to give value myself, right? And at the end of my podcast, there's a free GFC. So if you want that, you can listen to that. But what I'm inspired to do, actually, just by what you're giving, is I'm going to give everyone listening something really special and something that I've put together, for your audience. And if you're inspired, like Rosanne said, I'm going to give you what I call my Resonance Reboot Bundle. And it consists of 3 incredibly powerful goodies that I'm going to give you for free for your listeners. But before I give you the specifics, let me explain who this is for, because it's not for everybody. If you're somebody who wants to remove the blocks that keep you stuck and to learn the tools to raise your resonance to live a life that you never thought possible, then this is for you. Okay, so right now you might feel like you're doing all the things to try to move yourself forward in that one area of your life or to feel something different, whatever it is. I did all of them, the coaching, the therapy, the personal development, whatever, but I still felt stuck and you might still feel stuck. And that can feel really disempowering and possibly even like there's no hope, right? And what you really need to do, and once again, we've been talking about this whole podcast, is to really raise your resonance. So, how empowered you feel and what your life actually looks like can shift. And that's exactly what I'm going to help you with. So, again, there are 3 awesome products in the Resonance Reboot Bundle. Number 1 is the Frequency Accelerated Group Frequency Calibration, which is going to help you boost your resonance, because that's what we've been talking about this whole time. And it's only 20 minutes long. And the second and third parts of the Resonance Reboot Bundle are things that I normally only give to paying clients. Okay, so these are 2 video workshops that amplify each other, which is really awesome. So number 2 is called Emptying Your Teacup, Making Way for the New. And this will help you to start to clear out all the outdated limiting stories, beliefs, etc., that are keeping you stuck. And then the third thing is called Stability, Growth, and Opportunity in Chaos, which, I think we could all use right now, given all the crazy stuff that's happening in the world around you. And normally, Emptying Your Teacup sells for $99, and Stability, Growth, and Opportunity in Chaos is $4.99, and that's USD. So between the two, that's almost $600 in value for free, just for your audience, and you literally cannot find this bundle anywhere else online. So ultimately, this will help you to finally create momentum so you can really start to live a life you never thought possible. And if you want to access the Resonance Reboot Bundle, you just go to my Instagram, and my handle is spherical_luminosity. And perhaps Rosanne can help by putting it in the notes so you don't have to know how to spell all that. But if you find me there and you DM me the words reboot 111, and once again, if you can find me on Instagram at spherical_luminosity and DM me the words reboot 111, I will send all those goodies to you.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to do that right now. I want
Thank
to
you.
experience these good. I just started following you anyway, but I thank you. Thank you so much, Karen. That is so incredibly generous. I really, really
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. What a
Mm.
beautiful gift. And you're right. You podcast, and I'm yeah, I just had a moment of while I was prepping actually for today of incredible gratitude because not only do I feel like I'm putting good, beautiful, positive energy and tools and tips and techniques and information for people, plus the meditations, of course, which are the majority of my podcast, but I get to meet people like you and hang out with you for an hour. I mean, how that I'm the one sitting here getting to ask you the questions. So I'm for this, but I'm also incredibly grateful to you for offering that wonderful offer to my listeners. And I really hope that lots of them take you up on it. Um, I think this episode is going to come out in sort of mid-January, so it could be like the perfect, reboot
Oh, for the
for
new
you.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's going to be absolutely perfect. So thank you, thank you, Karen. It's been incredible to chat with you.
Thank you so much, too.